Welcome to session 3 of Less is More. I welcome you to begin today's session lying on the back. And if that does not feel safe to you, you absolutely do not have to do it. You might explore staying seated, but if you'd like to come down onto your back, you could begin to find your way there, adjusting your space as needed. Beginning to either find a blanket underneath you if that feels comfortable for your body, or possibly maybe a mat. And as you arrive lying on your back, you might choose to keep your feet planted on the floor. Or if you are seated, if you choose to stay seated, you might simply just notice a spacious spine. And as you find the shape that you are in, you find yourself in your shape, you might begin to notice any sounds around you. Starting to arrive in this space. And you don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to. However, that is an option. And if you choose to keep your eyes open, you might explore taking the gaze down the nose, possibly staring at a still and moving spot. As we just arrive in this practice, taking a moment as you listen to the sounds around you, to begin drawing your awareness inward, perhaps noticing where your body is touching the floor. Noticing what kind of textures you feel. If your feet are touching the floor, you might notice the blanket or the mat underneath your feet. Or perhaps just observing the weight of your body meeting the earth beneath you or whatever's supporting you. And for the next few breaths, allowing yourself to arrive in your own timing. In this session today, I offer you a note of hope. In this session of less is more, it's so easy to be caught up in striving and attaining and believing that we need to acquire in order to soften or to rest or to hope for something different or something more. And I'd like to read to you a poem today by Nikita Gill, and it's titled Where Hope Comes From. It comes from heartache, and it grows like the lone sapling from the ashes of loss. And it carves its way out of the heart of tragedy and its heavy cost. And it rises like a soldier thought lost returning home to his mother. And it smiles like the calm, clear sky, following weeks of one storm after another. And maybe this is why when Pandora opened the box that carried such calamities, which inflicted all of mankind, gentle hope emerged from it too. What else helps us overcome suffering, if not by giving hope a chance to bloom? In this session, I invite you to bring with you all of the emotions, all of the situations, all of the circumstances that surround the season of life that you are in, and welcoming it on your mat, knowing that you don't necessarily have to change or fix anything, but simply allow hope to bloom. Even if it does feel like there is storm after storm, hope can bloom. So if you are ready to begin moving, I invite you to begin by pulling your knees in toward the chest, perhaps even wrapping your hands around your knees, or you might even prefer placing your hands behind your knees if that is more accessible. Either way, you might choose to rock from side to side, or you might choose to stay at stillness with your knees in toward your chest. Just beginning to gently wake up the body, ease into the body. More like wake up our awareness to our own bodies. And you can stay here as long as you like, hugging your knees in. And if you are rocking and ready to come back to stillness, I'll meet you there. Taking just 1 or 2 breaths. Letting hope bloom. And if your hands are over the tops of your knees, you might begin by placing them behind your knees, holding onto your own legs. And you might even extend your arms out a comfortable distance so that you still have a secure hold of your own legs. However, your arms can just naturally extend however far they'd like to extend. So we have the knees still inward, but not as close in toward the abdomen as they were. And beginning to tap into our breath here, at whatever natural pace you are breathing, you might begin to inhale and reach the legs up towards the sky. You could keep hold of the back of your legs here. And exhale, you might begin to allow them to extend down. So you could explore allowing both legs to reach up at the same time, or you could explore doing one leg at a time. Last one. And the next time your feet have released down toward the earth, you might pull the knees back in a little bit closer to your chest and hug them in. Option to inhale and even curl your head and your spine up toward your knees, maybe even curling into a little ball. Hugging as long as you like here and releasing whenever you'd like to. Option to plant the feet on the floor, hip distance apart. And as we begin to warm up our spine, we warmed up our legs and our lower back a little bit, but as we begin to move into our spine, I invite you to kind of treat this next shape almost like a cat-cow in a way, like a wave-like movement. However, there will be 2 different options you can explore. So with our feet about hip distance apart, or when whatever stance that feels stable in your body, you could begin to release the hands down to your sides, just resting wherever they feel secure. And it's important to check in on our neck here. So if you notice that your chin is pointing up toward the ceiling, You might begin to pick up the back of the head and tuck the chin in toward the chest, and then allow the head to rest back down on the floor. Noticing the length in the spine here. So you can explore that in a way that feels natural to your body. And when you're ready, we'll begin by pressing into our feet. And two options here. First one is that wave-like motion as we begin to peel the tailbone up off of the floor, allowing one vertebrae at a time to lift off, coming up only as high as you want to, and then reversing that motion, peeling the spine right back down. Maybe allowing the tailbone to come down last. So that's option one. You can take this wave-like motion, slowly peeling the spine off of the floor, and then peeling it back down, rolling like a wave. Or you might explore a lumbar lift. And so that would look like pressing into your feet and simply lifting up through the spine, kind of like a forklift, and then resting the spine right back down. So just lifting up. An option to drape a blanket over your legs and torso, if that allows you to feel a bit safer in this shape. So wherever you're at, you have every choice and option here. You decide what you do with your body. You decide what pace you move at. You decide how much you move. And you reserve the right to change your mind at any moment. No permission needed. We'll be here for another 3 rounds of breath. So that's 3 inhales and 3 exhales. However, you can either stop whenever you want to or continue going for as long as you'd like to. Last one. The next time your back is resting on the floor, I welcome you to just take a pause here. Perhaps even bringing some special awareness to your spine, noticing how your back feels. One more round of breath, in and out. Letting hope bloom. And if you'd like to, you could keep your feet planted on the floor, or you could extend the legs out long. Your choice. There's no right or wrong here. You might even try both and see which one you like best. And we'll move into just a short lateral stretch. So if you'd like, you could reach your hands right overhead and rest them on the floor back behind you. And whether your feet are planted on the floor or maybe the legs are extended out long, either way, the top of your body can begin to reach on over to the right. So you might even pick up your head, pick up your shoulders, and allow the arms to reach over to the right. Taking 3 or 4 breaths into the left lung, the left ribs. Imagining even roots taking hold in your lungs, roots of hope. Noticing perhaps the expansion as you breathe in and the softening as you breathe out. Last inhale and exhale here. And you can stay here longer if this is feeling particularly welcome to your body. And if you're ready to leave, you could begin to draw the top half of your body back to center. Taking one breath in between. And on your next exhale, or whenever you decide to, you could begin to move the top half of your body over toward the left. So reaching the arms over toward the left. This time, exploring the right side of your body, the right ribs and lung. Observing the opening. Breathing into these little blossoms of hope. Last breath. And when you're ready, you could begin to draw yourself back to center. And you could release your arms down to the side. If your legs are extended out long, you might begin to pull them in, maybe planting them on the floor, and take a moment, rolling over to one side. You choose the side. Just pausing here in the fetal position for just a moment. Observing any differences in your body so far. You can stay here until you decide you're ready to change shapes. And whenever you decide that you're ready, you could meet me in a child's pose. Perhaps placing a blanket or a towel underneath your knees for comfort. You might decide to take the knees as wide as the mat, or maybe keeping the knees a bit closer together. You might choose to rest your forehead down on the mat, or you might choose to create fists and stack them on top of one another underneath your chin to keep your gaze lifted. And as always, you could choose to wrap a blanket over the lower half of your body. And we'll take about 3 breaths here. Last one. When you're ready to shift shapes, you might begin to lift your head up and begin to make your way forward into a tabletop. Option to place the knees right underneath the hips, give or take, and maybe even placing the hands about shoulder distance apart underneath the shoulders, or even a little bit ahead of the shoulders, especially if your wrists are a bit sensitive. It might help to have them a little bit ahead of the shoulders. And we'll begin by moving through a modified vinyasa as we continue to open up the chest and the shoulders. And I'd like to take you through 4 rounds. However, I'm just guiding you, and if you do less or more than me, then that's totally fine. You can move at your own pace, and I'll just be here guiding about 4 different rounds. So from your tabletop shape, we'll begin to breathe in, and as you exhale, you could begin to lower on down to the stomach. With your next inhale, you might begin to find a cobra pose, cobra shape. So you might begin to press into your hands, open up through the chest and the heart, maybe a little bit more. And an exhale to roll back down, press into your hands and rock back onto your knees to find a child's shape. That was one. We'll keep it moving however you can move in your own timing as we inhale, lift the head up, rock ourselves forward, and exhale. I like to allow my knees to slide back to create a little bit of room, and then lower down onto the stomach. Inhaling, pressing into the hands, and opening up for cobra shape. Maybe your gaze finds its way forward. And exhaling whenever you're ready to release and press back into your hands, shifting yourself back into child's pose of your choice. For these next two, I'd like to add on a little bit to our cobra shape. So when you're ready to breathe in, lifting the gaze and shifting yourself forward into a tabletop shape. Exhaling and lowering down in your own timing. This time, option to take a cobra shape as we've been doing it, or option to take your fingertips out to the left and to the right, drawing the elbows up and even creating like a tent with your fingers. And the hands can be roughly underneath the elbows. And here we can inhale and press into the fingers nice and strong. And as we exhale, you could draw your left shoulder forward and look over the right shoulder. Inhale back to center. Exhale, draw the right shoulder forward and look over your left shoulder. And inhale for center. Exhale to release whenever you're ready. Hands can come right back down to the earth as we press into them and shift ourselves back into a child's pose of your choice. We'll go through one more round of that if you'd like to join me. As we breathe in, shifting ourselves forward. And exhale to lower on down. Option to take the cobra pose right here, or take the fingertips out to the side as we breathe in and press ourselves up and open. Exhale to draw the left shoulder forward and look back over the right. When you're ready to inhale, you could draw yourself back to center. And exhale, maybe you take the other side. And an exhale to lower you all the way down. Hands can stabilize you on the earth. And if you're ready to press back, I'll meet you in a child's pose. Pausing here for about 3 or 4 breaths. Observing how you feel in your shoulders and your heart space. Perhaps even becoming aware of how your breath is moving. Noticing the natural rhythm of your breath. You don't have to do anything to alter it. And maybe even tuning into your heartbeat. Noticing if it's perhaps beating a little bit faster or harder, or maybe it's starting to slow down a little bit as we take our final breath here. If you are ready for the next shape, I invite you to join me in lifting the head up. And if your hands aren't already extended here in our child's pose, you might find your way there. And with our left hand moving in toward the center of our mat, palm is grounded on the floor. You could begin to inhale and peel the right shoulder back and really open up, maybe even giving yourself a little wrist roll through the right hand. And then as you exhale, beginning to needle it through underneath the left arm, right palm face up. And you could draw your right shoulder down towards the earth, maybe even allowing your right temple to rest on the earth here. And you could leave your left hand extended, or if you prefer to have it in a little bit closer, you could rest the left hand on your mat, perhaps right in front of your face. One more breath here in your own timing. If you are ready for the next shape, your left hand can move toward you, maybe planting it on the floor, either in front of your face or in front of the left shoulder. And pressing into your left hand, you could unravel, taking your time, maybe stretching back open, and then resting right back on the earth. As we take the next side, if you'd like to join me, you could bring your right hand to the center of your mat, extend it out in front of you. And with your next inhale, you might begin to breathe in and peel yourself open, peeling the left shoulder back. Option to take a little wrist roll here. And an exhale to needle through. Bringing the left shoulder to the earth. You could extend the right arm, or you could bring it in. Your choice is always honored here. And there is no wrong choice. Whatever you decide for your body is the right choice. Whatever that decision is. We'll take 1 or 2 more rounds of breath. And if you would like to stay here longer, you absolutely can. There's no rush. And if you are ready to find the next shape, you could place your right hand right in front of your face or in front of the right shoulder. And pressing into the right palm, you could begin to unravel. Maybe even reaching back one more time. And letting go when you're ready. Checking in on your body, noticing how you feel. Maybe even rolling through the shoulders or taking any other natural movement here. Maybe even checking in on the neck. This whole class has been and continues to be about opening up the shoulders, the heart, and the chest, allowing hope to bloom. If you're ready to start settling in a little bit more, you could find your way down onto your stomach. And I'm actually gonna face this way so that you can see me a little bit better. So, coming down to lie on the stomach. And kind of like we're setting up for our cobra shape, you could plant your hands on the floor underneath you or underneath the shoulders, give or take. And you could start by extending the right side. You can start on either side that you want, but if you want to do the same side as me, you can start on the right side. So with the right hand extended and the left hand planted on the floor, notice here, I don't typically give a lot of anatomy instruction, but for this one I will, and you can take it or leave it. So notice that the right shoulder is still lifted up and off of the floor. So there's two options here. You could keep the right shoulder lifted, or you could just ease in, settling in. So there's two choices, and neither one is wrong. When you're ready, we'll breathe in, and with an exhale, you could draw your left heel up, and then pressing into the left hand, you could begin to send the left heel over toward the right, finding a nice big stretch through the right shoulder. And option here to rest your right temple or your forehead on the ground, and noticing here that you control how much you come into the stretch. So if this is feeling very overwhelming and maybe a bit more than what you'd like to experience in this moment, then you can draw your left hip so that it's a bit more center. So if your left foot is all the way back touching the floor and this feels like, whoa, this is a lot, then maybe pick up the left foot off of the floor. It doesn't have to touch the floor, and your hips will follow, and that will reduce the stretch. And we'll take another 3 or 4 breaths here, rounds of breath. However, you can leave whenever you want. You do not have to stay somewhere that causes discomfort or pain or overwhelm. You can choose to stay if it feels welcome or leave if it does not feel welcome. And your choice is honored. Last round of breath in and out. If you are ready to leave this shape, you could begin by drawing your left leg back down to the earth, coming back onto the stomach, and option to pull your right hand in, maybe even using your arms as a pillow for just a moment. And perhaps observing any differences in the right shoulder and the left shoulder. And when you're ready, you could extend the left arm out and place the right hand underneath the right shoulder, give or take. Choosing if you'd like to leave the left shoulder elevated or if you'd like to completely sink down and settle into the earth. It does, which one you choose is up to you. It does change the stretch, but like I said, both are good, both are welcome. There's no wrong choice. So when you're ready, we'll breathe in and drawing the right heel up, bending the right knee. You could exhale and start sending the right heel over toward the left. Resting the head in any way that feels supportive to you, and adjusting the percentage of this stretch if needed. Taking another 3 or 4 rounds of breath if you would like to. Last one. In your own timing, you could begin to draw the right leg back down to the floor. Maybe even bring the left arm back in, resting here for just a moment. What do you feel? What is present for you in this moment? Taking one more breath here. And when you're ready, because you can stay here longer, resting, or if you're ready for the next shape, so we just, with that shape that we just did, we really opened up the front body, the front of the heart, the front of the chest, the front of the shoulder. And so now I'm going to guide you through opening up the back of the heart, the back of the shoulder. And to come into this next shape, you could bring your elbows in front of you, planting them on the floor. I'm going to turn actually so that you could see from the side. Okay. So with our elbows planted on the floor, you could extend your left arm so that the elbow is up off of the floor, creating a little bit of space. And just like we threaded the needle before, we're gonna do a similar shape now. So we'll breathe in, and you could option to open up through the right hand, maybe really far back, or maybe just a little bit, maybe halfway, and then exhale. Right palm can be face up as you needle it through underneath your left arm, and then begin to come on down as much as you would like. So, couple options here. If this is feeling really tight, you could take a blanket and fold it up and put it underneath your right arm, your right shoulder specifically. And I'll show you that option. So you could take your blanket and just place it right underneath the right shoulder so that your shoulder isn't going so far down toward the earth. And then maybe even rest your forehead on your left arm. If the blanket here is unnecessary for the shape for you, then you can just allow the shoulder, the right arm to sink on down toward the earth. Maybe even bringing your left arm in front of you, perhaps using it as a pillow for your forehead. Adjusting this shape to be whatever you need. in this moment. And I'm going to reread the poem that we explored at the beginning of class. It's titled Where Hope Comes From. Where hope comes from. It comes from heartache, and it grows like the lone sapling from the ashes of loss. And it carves its way out of the heart of tragedy and its heavy cost. And it rises like a soldier thought lost, returning home to his mother. And it smiles like the calm, clear sky, following weeks of one storm after another. And maybe this is why, when Pandora opened the box that carried such calamities, which inflicted all of mankind, gentle hope emerged from it too. What else helps us overcome suffering, if not by giving hope a chance to bloom? What else helps us overcome suffering, if not giving hope the chance to bloom? So as you open up the back of your heart, I invite you to give hope an opportunity to bloom. We'll take one last breath here on this side. And if you're ready to leave this shape, you could lift your head and place your left hand on the floor, pressing into the left palm and opening up, unraveling, maybe even giving the right arm a stretch. Option to roll through the right shoulder if you would like to. And then we'll switch sides. So coming with our elbows on the floor, you could extend your right arm so that your elbow is lifted up. And if you'd like, you could inhale and peel the left shoulder open. Exhale, you could begin to needle it through. Perhaps using the blanket underneath your left shoulder, if that feels welcome and supportive. And then maybe even allowing your right arm to serve as a pillow for your forehead. As we settle in. What I really enjoyed about that poem by Nikita Gill, Where Hope Comes From, is that it comes from every situation that we might see as positive or negative. We might paint with our mind. And hope comes from both. It is the hardships that give it an opportunity, a chance to bloom. And so if this feels supportive to you today, I welcome you to allow hope a chance to bloom, even if it has been one storm after another. Even if you feel exhausted, even if you feel like you just can't do anything else, that's okay. You don't have to do anything for hope to bloom. Just allow it and notice it as it takes root, takes shape. And with your next inhale, If you're ready to move on from this shape, you could lift the head, place the right hand on the floor, pressing into your right hand and opening up, unraveling, maybe even taking a little shoulder roll. Taking any shape here that feels welcome. And if you'd like to join me for this next shape, we'll be moving into a supported fish pose. And this is simultaneously both a really good front body opener, big heart opener, as well as opening to the back. So if you have a blanket or a thick towel, you could roll it up from the short side all the way up until you have a nice burrito-like shape here, and place it running the length of your mat right down the center. I often like to have either a block or a second blanket right here for the head. And to set up for this, you could sit on the floor and face away from your blanket. I like to have a little bit of space in between the blanket and my lower back, the base of the spine. However, you don't have to. So what this might feel like in your body is if you have a little bit of space, maybe able to pass your hand through in between the lower back and the blanket, then it's going to feel like less of a back bend and more of a heart opener compared to if the base of your spine, the base of your back is really close to the blanket, it might feel like a little bit more of a back bend. So depending on what you need in your body in this moment, you can explore either one of those options or both, and then choose from there. And we'll start to ease our way down, lining up the spine on your blanket. Making any adjustments necessary here, giving yourself a moment. And you could place your feet on the floor, leaving them planted like this. Or you could also extend your legs out, resting them on the mat. So you decide. And with your hands or arms resting on the floor, however you like, or you could always rest them on your abdomen or your ribs. If you would like a little bit more stretch or sensation through your chest, you might explore extending your arms out into a T. Maybe try that and see how you like it. And if it feels supportive to you, then great. And if it doesn't, then you could always change your mind. As you begin to settle into our supported fish shape, I welcome you to give yourself ample permission to adjust any props or position of your own body that might not feel completely at ease here. Making any changes necessary so that you can feel at ease, or maybe even just a little bit more at ease. As we open up through the heart, Perhaps you bring some awareness to the front of your body, specifically your abdomen, so your stomach, your ribs, your chest. We'll be in this shape for another 8 or so breaths. However, you could always choose something else at any moment. This is your practice. And as you bring some awareness to your abdomen, you might observe the flow of your breath. You don't have to do anything to change the breath. You might simply just observe a wave-like motion as you inhale, noticing what parts of your body move in tandem with your breath. And as you exhale, observing the areas of your body that soften as your breath releases, making room for your next inhale. What else helps us overcome suffering, if not by giving hope a chance to bloom? As we take our final breath here, you could choose to stay in this shape for the remainder of your rest time for our Shavasana. Or if you are ready to leave this shape, you might begin by planting the feet on the floor. And then perhaps either pressing yourself up or just rolling to one side, being mindful that you're rolling off of the blanket and just pausing here for a breath. Beginning to find any rest shape that feels supportive to you. You could lie on your stomach or your back. You could take a supported Shavasana by sending the legs up the wall maybe, or perhaps resting your legs on a chair, or even if you have like a couch or a small coffee table nearby, you could always rest your legs on top of that. I think I'm going to send my legs up the wall, but you can choose anything that feels supportive to you. And if you want to join me in sending your legs up the wall, you could bring one hip to the wall and then placing your elbows on the floor in your hands, you could kind of maneuver yourself down, and you can be as close or as far away from the wall as you like. This shape, legs up the wall, is very supportive to the nervous system. It helps down-regulate our nervous system, giving us some support as we shift into a parasympathetic state, a rest and digest state. This shape also helps our lymphatic system, and so it also helps our immune system. So anytime you might be feeling overwhelmed, you could always return to this shape, resting here, as you might be doing now. We'll be here in this rest shape for the next 3 minutes, and I'll keep time so you know when our rest time is complete. We'll begin to bring some awareness back into the space around us. You could choose to stay in this rest shape for as long as you desire. There is no rush to move away from rest. If your legs are up the wall and you are ready to begin moving, you might begin to draw the feet down, perhaps resting them on the wall for just a moment. And then in your own timing, you could roll over to one side, whether you are at the wall or maybe in any other rest shape. Pausing here. And then only when you are ready to press yourself up, I'll meet you in any seated shape if you would like to join me. Taking a moment to arrive back into a seated shape. And if you'd like, You could leave your hands where they are, or you might join me with the hands at heart center. Option to join me for a collective breath as we exhale the air out and breathe in together. I hope that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. Thank you.